So this is session 28. We're going to go right to the end of Numbers. Whew. But don't worry, we're not going to read all that stuff. We're going to start in 28 and do some highlights. And then, as you know, there's 5 sessions left after this one. And obviously, they'll all be in Deuteronomy since that's the only other book. So after today, we'll have 4 of the 5 books done. 28 we're going to start. I'm sorry, now did I say 26? I thought I said 26. 28. But, and we're going to go over some highlights. We're not going to really read a lot. So, pretty soon, Moses is going to die. There's still revelations coming from God to Moses directly that he has to communicate to the people. They're coming to the plains of Moab, where all of Deuteronomy is going to be written, and all of Deuteronomy is going to be like within 2 months of going into the land. So our friend Moses is going to die just before they go into the land. I'm sure he figured it was a bummer at the time, but he's happy enough now that he doesn't care. Just like when I make jokes about certain people who write, like Mark. If we were still on Earth, Mark wouldn't like me anymore, and that's okay because Paul couldn't stand Mark. They didn't like each other. But then they got reconciled at the end. But, Mark's been in heaven so long now, he's not worrying about what's Phil saying down there about me. He's kind of past that. But now maybe when I show up, he might say, you, come here. How many Gospels did you write? Anyway. Yeah, it's, some people got offended when I make jokes, but, God gave us a sense of humor, right? So sometimes you have to use it. So this last part of Numbers is just going to kind of flow to just being across the river from Jericho. And as you know, Moses is going to go to the top of Mount Nebo and he's going to see all of the land. He gets a supernatural vision of all the land, and then he dies. And then whoever wrote the very last few sentences of Deuteronomy, because obviously it wasn't him because he died, said, Moses died and we don't know where he's buried to this day. Nobody knows where Moses was buried. So, by the end of this book, we're within a couple of months of the people being in the land. But there's still instructions coming. And as we're going to see here, the feast days are stated again. So it's pretty important. We watched an interesting video with this Eastern Orthodox priest that I really like. And he was commenting on how people say, well, I don't like organized religion. And he started going through all the Old Testament and how everything was meticulously organized. In the early church, how everything was meticulously organized. So he said, religion's always been organized. But there's just a little aside. So in chapters 28 and 29, the feasts are all restated. And the reason, too, is that as they're coming close to almost being into the land, you have to remember that thousands and tens of thousands of people have died in the wilderness and have been born in the wilderness. So if you were born right after leaving Egypt, you're just about to turn 40. So you've been in the wilderness your whole life. You don't know anything else. if you were 21 when you left Egypt, if you're not dead already, you're going to be dead soon. So if you were born like 3 days before they crossed the Jordan, you don't remember the wilderness. All you remember is the land. So there's a lot of people. And so all this instruction went on because there were literally different generations of people that had to be instructed. Same way that, of course, I don't think it happens so much anymore, but when we were growing up, people learned their faith from their parents and from their parents and from your Sunday school or from your catechism or wherever you went. People passed on the faith. And this is basically why everything keeps being repeated. And Deuteronomy is total repetition of everything that goes before it. That's why it's called second law. It's a repetition, so everybody understands what's going to happen when you go into the land. So he starts out by making a new offering, which then is going to go on through Jesus' time, and actually until the temple's destroyed in 70 AD. And it's every day. There's a morning prayer and what's called an evening prayer, but it's actually at 3 p.m., where a lamb is sacrificed in the morning and at 3 p.m. And this, of course, also prefigures the crucifixion, because Yeshua, Jesus, says, unblemished lamb, suffers through the morning, dies at 3 p.m., according to tradition. And at the time that the second lamb was offered at 3 p.m. on what was Passover, what we call Good Friday, the true lamb was dying outside the city while the priest was killing the sacrifice lamb inside the temple. And that's when the veil split. So all of that comes together because nothing happens randomly. So God says, from now on, here's what you're going to do. Every day at 3 o'clock, you're going to sacrifice a lamb. Now, Moses had no way to know that Messiah was going to come, bleed to death, and die at 3 p.m., because he would have no way to know that. But as somebody who studies Hebrew Scripture now, and as a believer, you say, wow, 3 p.m. the lamb dies? That's pretty amazing. Lamb, small l, not capital L, but you know what I mean. So, and now, and also you do it on the Sabbath. So it's 7 days a week, a constant, continuous series of sacrifices, all blood. That second Passover lamb, or that second lamb that was sacrificed on Passover day, later became almost like a Yom Kippur sacrifice, because tradition changed it to, this lamb is for the sins of the people, since it's Passover. And of course, the true lamb, Jesus, was dying for the sins of all the people outside of the city at the same moment. So think about that. Pretty amazing. That's why when people say to me, well, it's Good Friday, what are you doing? I say, every day is Good Friday for me. 20 times a day is Good Friday for me. And every day is Easter for me. There's not a special day, today's Good Friday, and that's the only time you think about it, because it's pretty amazing. So 2 lambs. And then there were sacrifices for the new moon, because the new moon begins the month. And because it's a lunar calendar, the first day of the month is when the new moon is spotted. So there's a little bit of variation. At that time, it didn't matter. We couldn't have variation even for 10 minutes. But, in ancient times, who cares whether it's midnight or 10 after midnight, or whether it's 2 p.m. or 2:30 p.m., who cares? You're still out catching fish or plowing or... Where's Jordan? I mean, your life didn't really depend on minute-to-minute time like ours does. So when they move into the land, they have spotters that look for the new moon. And when two people agree that that's the new moon, they blow the trumpets, and then everybody knows the month started. So sacrifices came also for the new moon. And then, you can read all this for your homework, because it's kind of it's stuff that we've already gone over, and it's being restated. Because, it says the Lord spoke to Moses and says, say to the children of Israel again, stuff that we've been saying. And you see there at the end of verse 2, you shall be careful to offer to me at the appointed time. Everything happens at an appointed time. You don't do it whenever you feel like it. You don't celebrate Passover whenever you feel like it. You do it at an appointed time. In fact, it tells you what day to do it, how to count days, how to count the 50 days from Passover to Shavuot, Pentecost, what day Yom Kippur is, what day the Tabernacles is, day by day. Boom, boom. The appointed times, you don't do it whenever you feel like it. And the sacrifices in chapter 28, it says a couple times, they're a sweet offering to God. They're a disgusting thing, really. I mean, killing an animal is a disgusting thing. Yeshua dying on the cross is a sickening spectacle. But God says it's a pleasing aroma because the blood covers sin, and sin is atoned for. That's kind of hard to understand because, now we're the church of nice. Everything's nice and clean. And, I always, like at Christmas time, I always tell people throw their nativity scenes away because, the nativity scene certainly didn't look like we have it portrayed with blonde, curly-haired Jesus and Mary all neat and clean going, and Joseph going. Joseph would have been outside going, ugh. Mary would have been a total mess. Smelly animals, smelly hay, smelly thing. Men didn't sit around watching babies being born in those days, right? The man would have been like, phew. So I always say throw your nativity scenes away. And, if you have a crucifix, a cross with the body on it, there's usually a little hole over here, a little hole over here, a little hole on the feet, a little hole over here. Get rid of that and make it look like what it really looked like if you're going to do it. It's unbelievable. You couldn't even recognize him as a man. That's what he looked like. Because sin is messy business. And so this is an aroma of sacrifice because it takes away sin. And so then it goes into the feasts. Now we're not going to reread all this, but read it for your homework. It talks about the 7th month. The first day is the Feast of Trumpets, which is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah. And if you come to one in Messiah in September, we'll celebrate it. Hey. We haven't had a good shofar blower for a long time, but since Pastor Dan left, we don't even have a shofar anymore. I wonder what he did with that shofar. We should have bought that. Probably threw it away. He probably took it with him, yeah. Well, maybe we should use some money from one in Messiah and buy one of those nice shofars. And somebody could practice blowing it. Those really curly ones, they're like really expensive, but if you know how to blow them, wow. It's pretty cool. It's hard to find, even in a synagogue, it's hard to find men that really blow the shofar real well. It takes a lot of practice. Except Shofar Guy. I can never remember his name. I call him Shofar Guy. He travels with Paul Wilbur a lot, and he has like 5 or 6 different shofars of different lengths, so they make different notes. Because you can't make a lot of notes on a shofar. The only thing that varies is the length of the thing. So his testimony was that he went to a Messianic synagogue and some guy was, blowing the shofar, and he said, "Wow, is that hard to do?" And the guy said, "Oh yeah, it's impossible to do, It takes a lot of practice. And so he said, can I try it? And so he picked up a shofar and he blew this perfect shofar blast. He attributes it to like a supernatural intervention. And now he blows all these shofars. He's got all these different tones to it. But anyway, so the Feast of Trumpets is the only feast that starts on the first day of a month. And then Yom Kippur, and then Tabernacles. They're all within 4 weeks. They're all basically in the same month. They all start in the same month. So the fall feasts are all together. And then, of course, the spring feasts we just went through them. Passover and unleavened bread and first fruits and Pentecost. So if you look at chapter 29 at the very end, verse 40, so Moses told the children of Israel everything just as the Lord commanded Moses. So, we read all this stuff and say, oh, this is really tedious. But then Moses got all this stuff and he had to tell everybody. So Moses faithfully, of course, writes it down too, but tells everybody what the Lord, all capital letters, has told them. And we're going to see, there's a little typo here, where it says chapter 30, so it should say chapter 31. Because chapter 30 is all about making vows. And a lot of the law has to do with making vows and taking oaths. So if you say to somebody, I promise I'll come over later and help you change your tire, and then you say, he can change the tire himself, I don't feel like going. You've broken a vow that you made. And of course, everybody does that. And then, of course, there's the oath that you make before God, which is a whole different ballgame. So, when you're a little kid and you say, well, I swear to God, that's really what happened. You shouldn't say stuff like that. That's why Jesus said, don't say that. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And don't swear anything. Because if you do it wrong, you put God's name into it. And that's serious business. So if you swear before God that you saw the guy steal the money and you hadn't seen him steal the money, that's bad. Because now you've brought the glory, the holiness of God's name into your lie. So you've really compounded it. But so basically, the night before Yom Kippur, if you ever get a chance to go to it, it's a little tedious. And we don't do it at One of Messiah. But if you go to a Messianic congregation, even, they'll do it. There's what's called a Kol Nidre service. Kol Nidre means all vows. And you repent of all the vows and all the oaths you've taken over the year that you didn't follow through on, or that you willfully lied to somebody about, or that you took a false oath about somebody. Oh, I swear I saw him do it. And it goes on for like an hour of all these things you have to repent from to get yourself right for the new year. Kol Nidre. And the traditional synagogues, of course, will do it in Hebrew and then in English. The Messianic synagogues, like Tikvat, will do it in Hebrew and in English. So then it takes, 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And most Messianic places will do it just in English. But you have to be very careful about oaths. So you go into 31. 31's a tough one. Because now it's, my chapter heading here is called Vengeance on the Midianites. And if you see chapter 31:1, you see something that jumped right at you. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take vengeance on the Midianites for the children of Israel. Afterwards, you shall be gathered to your people. So what's God telling Moses? Well, you're going to fight this war with the Midianites, and then you're going to die. So let's do it. Now, he has a whole nother book that he's going to write, but like I say, that goes over a couple of months. So this is probably a couple of months before he dies. And see, God tells them to take vengeance on the Midianites. So Moses spoke to the people, saying, arm some of yourselves for war, and let them go against the Midianites to take vengeance for the Lord on Midian. 1,000 from each tribe. Of all the tribes of Israel, you shall send to war. So there were recruited from the divisions of Israel 1,000 men from each tribe, 12,000 armed for war. Now, presumably the Levites don't go to war. So he's probably talking about Manasseh and Ephraim, which are actually half tribes, but it doesn't specifically say that. So 1,000 men from each tribe go to war. Now keep that in mind for what's going to happen. Then Moses sent them to the war, 1,000 from each tribe. He sent them to the war with Phinehas, the son of Eleazar the priest, with the holy articles and the signal trumpets in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites, just as the Lord commanded Moses, and they killed all the males. They killed the kings of Midian, with the rest of those who were killed, and you can read those. And then we see Balaam, son of Beor, they also killed with the sword. So our friend Balaam, the pagan priest who speaks to God, who has the talking donkey, gets killed in this battle by an Israelite with a sword. Bummer. I kind of like Balaam. So even though he makes this beautiful prayer called the Matovu, he still gets killed in this battle. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your tabernacles, Israel. And they kill him with the sword. Maybe it was just, fog of war kind of stuff. So anyway, so if Balaam's in heaven, maybe he'll like me when I get there. That won't make up for Mark, though. Boy, this is a tough audience. Of course, it is 9 in the morning. And the children of Israel took the women of Midian captive with their little ones, and took as spoil all their cattle, all their flocks, all their goods. And they also burned with fire all the cities where they dwelt, and all their forts. And they took all the spoil and all the booty of man and beast. So they killed all the men. They initially take all the women and the children and burned their cities down. This was the revenge God told them to take against the Midianites. Then they brought the captives, the booty and the spoil, to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the congregation of the children of Israel, to the camp in the plains of Moab by the Jordan, across from Jericho. They can see the land from where they are. They're right across the river from Jericho. Isn't that cool? Right across the river. Our two littlest grandkids love watching the Veggie Tales, the one where the walls of Jericho fall down. It's so cute. And Joshua's this big cucumber, and all the guards on the wall are these little peas. Oh, it's so cute, and they sing these little songs. And then there's the place, where the people shout and the walls fall down. So then the both of them sit there going, ah, and then the walls get down. I hate to say they're not going to learn any of that from their parents, so we have to teach them. And Moses and Eleazar the priest and all the leaders of the congregation went to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was angry with the officers of the army, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds who had come from the battle. And Moses said, have you kept all the women alive? Look, these women caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to trespass against the Lord in the incidents at Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman who has known a man intimately. But keep alive for yourselves all the young girls who have not known a man intimately. And as for you, remain outside the camp 7 days. Whoever has killed any person and whoever has touched any slain, purify yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day purify every garment, everything made of leather, everything woven of goat hair, and everything made of wood. Now, so Moses says, these women gave birth to men who led you people astray, gave birth to women who led your sons astray, so you got to kill them. So they kill all the women who have had men. And they leave young girls and very young women. And then because they come in contact with death, they're ritualistically unclean for 7 days. So you have to stay outside the camp, even though God basically ordered them to kill everybody. This is one of the hard sayings, because the people were contaminated by them. They were introduced false gods. And in Deuteronomy, we're going to hear how God's going to say, when you go into the land, you have to kill everybody who's in the villages, because if you don't, they'll contaminate you. You can't believe how many Bible studies I've been to where people say, oh, God would never do that. I said, well, he actually did. To protect the people. Now, I'm not suggesting that people who lead people in the church away should be killed, because, the police wouldn't take kindly to that either. Hey, I hope Jordan's watching. But anyway, so that's pretty tough. Then you put everything that isn't burned through the fire. Everything else you have to clean with water. You have to wash your clothes, and then you can come back. So it's really a slaughter. And during all these battles, not one single Israelite is killed. Not one single one. There were many battles where many Israelites were killed. Sometimes there's, in the 67 war and the 73 war, there were many miracles where totally outnumbered Israeli army units were spared from certain doom and chased down the enemy, and there's no way it could have happened. There was an incident just a few years ago where there was some kind of terrorist group coming over, and this cloud of sand went up in front of, actually right over the border, and the people couldn't come in from Syria. And there's actually videos that Israeli soldiers took of like this wall of sand that kept people out. So once in a while there's some intervention that happens. But this was kind of a sickening blunder. Then if you look through all this, it talks about all the livestock they took, like numbers of donkeys, number of sheep. And if you look down to verse 49, it says, not a man of us is missing. So not one single Israelite was killed. So on to a little more pleasant things. In chapter 32, we have this business that initially makes Moses mad. And that is that, now remember, they're east of the Jordan. The land starts west of the Jordan. Okay, they're on the plains of Moab, east of the Jordan. It's present-day Jordan. I mean, there's a really cool road I like to drive on when we're there that goes right along the river. It's Highway 90. It goes right along the river, and you see the river over here, and I always think about, that's the plains of Moab over there. Then over here you see Jericho and Gilgal and that are inside the land. So it's kind of a cool road to drive on. Unless there's riots going on or if it's the last day of Ramadan, it's not a good road to be on. We went cruising into the old city last time. Was the last time we were there or the time before? I didn't even realize it was the last day of Ramadan. And there were soldiers everywhere, roadblocks, military vehicles, men and women with machine guns like this all over the place. I tried to, well, actually, I was going the wrong way on a one-way road. And some nice soldiers with machine guns said, turn around. But it was like all the main roads were closed. We couldn't go anywhere. So we went back to the hotel. And I said, what's going on? Was there some kind of incident? And the guy behind the desk who knows us says, well, it's the last day of Ramadan. Everybody goes a little bit crazy. And, if you wait till 4 or 5 o'clock, all the soldiers will be gone. Everything will be quiet. So we waited till about 4 o'clock to go back. All the soldiers were gone. All the people were gone. So east of the Jordan, which is not the land, 2 tribes and half of a half tribe want to stay there. Good trivia question. Reuben, remember, first son, sandwich named after him, opened the first deli. And Gad, because everybody said, Gad, why would you want to stay here? Now, and half of Ephraim want to stay on the east side of the Jordan because they like the pasture land. Now, they're not really supposed to stay there because they're supposed to go into the land. Now, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had very great multitude of livestock. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed the region was a place for livestock, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moses, to Eleazar the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, all these guys, we don't have to know all these guys' names, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel is a land of livestock, and your servants have livestock. Therefore, if we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan. We want to stay here. And Moses said to the children of Gad and to the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war while you sit here? Now, why will you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord has given me? Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. He's comparing them to the spies now. For when they went up to the valley of Eshcol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel. So they did not go into the land which the Lord had given them. So the Lord's anger was aroused on that day. So he's saying, if you guys want to stay here, that's going to discourage all the other people. And plus, if we have to go in there and fight, are we going to be in there fighting and you guys are just going to be sitting here watching TV and having your having your flocks in the thing? They're going to get discouraged. And just like 10 of the 12 spies totally demoralized everybody, and we ended up wandering around for 40 days. When the Lord's anger was aroused in verse 10, he swore an oath, saying, surely none of the men who came up from Egypt from 20 years old and above shall see the land, which I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because they have not wholly followed me, except Caleb and Joshua. So Caleb and Joshua are the only ones that believed me, the only ones that truly followed. Everybody else, not truly followed. It's kind of like when we talk about discipleship. You're a disciple, you're not a disciple. Jesus isn't looking for fans. He doesn't want people to think he's awesome. He doesn't want people to say, oh, yeah, High five Jesus. A lot of churches now are just high five Jesus. Yeah, Jesus, you're awesome. He wants disciples. He doesn't want fans. He doesn't want Sunday morning spectators. He doesn't want, oh yeah, Jesus, yep, he really helped me out. Yep, made a difference in my life. Yep, my life's certainly better. No, he wants disciples. Either you're holy with him or you're not. There's no middle ground. Black and white, there's no gray. That's why those scary passages, in Matthew 7, isn't, where he says, that last day people are going to say, Lord, we did all this stuff. And he's going to say, I don't know who you are. You're going to be wailing and gnashing your teeth while you see everybody else going into the kingdom. That's a much more scary saying to me than killing Midianites. We have a bunch of Midianites live on our Parkview Drive now. They moved in after you guys left. Yeah, once one of them got in, then that was it. Yeah, next thing you know, there'll be Hittites moving in. And yeah, I came in, I said, I think a bunch of Midianites just bought Tony's house. Yeah. So they want to stay, and now Moses is worried that they're going to discourage everybody and God's going to punish them again. But they tell Moses not to worry. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spoke to Moses, saying, your servants will do as my Lord commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and our livestock will be there in the cities of Gilead. But your servants shall cross over, every man armed for war, before the Lord to battle, just as the Lord says. So they said, the men will come with you to fight. The women and children will stay here with the flocks. So don't worry, we're coming in to fight. So then Moses tells the priest, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben cross over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before the Lord, and the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead as a possession. If they do not cross over, they will have possessions with you, among you in the land of Canaan. In other words, if they come and fight with us, they can stay here. So Moses compromises. You come and fight, and they'll do it, and they agree. Manasseh, not Ephraim. So Moses gave to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Shihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land with all its cities within its borders, and the cities of the surrounding countryside. So Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh stay east of the Jordan. Who cares? Well, it's kind of a gee whiz thing. So Manasseh gets split, half of them on each side of the river. And they moved into the cities that were already there, and they had the pasture land. And they did go in and fight. So 33, now this is what I mean. So many things are repeated. Chapter 33 repeats everything that happened when the people left Egypt and everything that happened when they wandered in the wilderness. You can read that for your homework. It starts out saying, these are the journeys of the children of Israel who went out of the land of Egypt under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And if you read through there, you'll see all the stuff that they did and all the places that they went, all these places that they camped. So it's all recounted. Why? Because people need to know that. People need to know their history. People need to know what happened. People need to know how God delivered them, how he sustained them, how he gave them provision that they needed, how he took them around the wilderness. And we have to know that too. Not just our secular history, but our spiritual history. You know, we're saved by the Messiah who bled and died for us. We're a people set apart. We're not supposed to be like the other people in the world. We're a special people, and we're preserved by him. You have to tell that, like we say Friday nights, you teach that diligently to your children. Well, most people don't do that anymore. It's hard to teach that diligently to your children when your kids are going to school and they're doing all this other stuff and they're watching all these other things. And so it's important to know your spiritual history. And like I always told people when I was working, people worry more about their cholesterol than where they're going to spend eternity. And when you think about it, it's pathetic. Who cares what your cholesterol is compared to being damned? But, you think in a billion years you're going to say, man, I had my cholesterol right where I wanted it. You could care less. Hey. St. Mark's saying that right now. No. I better let go of that St. Mark business. I'm in enough trouble already. So, all of it is recounted. And we're no different, like I said. It's like one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther is, we have to hear the gospel over and over again because we're so mule-headed, we forget. You come out of the church going, oh, yeah, well, and 2 hours later, you're like, 2 days later, you're like, I don't remember, I don't know. Oh, yeah, I remember, yeah. That's why you got to think about it all the time. You got to be a disciple. You have to be serious. You have to be learning. You have to be studying. You have to be praying. You have to be thinking. You have to be, going over these things in your head because it's so easy to lose track. Like I said, you guys weren't there Friday night when I was talking about the Facebook page being ruined. I said, I took a totally non-Christian approach. I said, I'd like to find this guy and wring his neck. Right? I don't want to bless him and preach him the gospel to him. I want to wring his neck. But you know what I mean. And so still in 33, we're going to go down to verse 50 because this is good. Now, they just heard about all the stuff they did after Egypt. They're right across the river from the land. Verse 50, now the Lord spoke to Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. So it keeps emphasizing they can see the land from where they are. All these years of wandering, and there's the land right in front of them. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you have crossed the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then shall you drive out all the inhabitants of the land from before you. Destroy all their engraved stones, destroy all their molded images, and demolish all their high places. You shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land and dwell in it. For I have given you the land to possess. And you shall divide the land by lot as an inheritance among your families. To the larger you shall give a larger inheritance. To the smaller you shall give a smaller inheritance. There everyone's inheritance shall be whatever falls to him by lot. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your fathers. But if you do not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, Then it shall be that those who remain shall be irritants in your eyes and thorns in your sides, and they shall harass you in the land where you dwell. Moreover, it shall be that I will do to you as I thought to do to them. If you don't drive these people out, they're going to torment you. They're going to be thorns in your side. Sounds like 2 Corinthians. The Lord gave me this thorn in my flesh, Paul says. 3 times I asked him to remove it, and he said, my grace is enough. Oh, wait, that's a different book. So he says they're going to harass you. They're going to be thorns in your side, and I'm going to do to you what I was going to do to them. So if you don't do what I say, you're going to get punished. So you got to drive these people out. You got to destroy all their stuff. Take down their statues, take down their poles, break up their temples. Whatever stuff they leave behind, you got to destroy it, or it's going to contaminate you. So, just about to go into the land. So 34 is going to mark out the borders of the land, and then when they get there, of course, in the book of Joshua, they're going to divide up the land. Because, of course, Joshua is going to take them in, not Moses. So it talks about the borders, it talks about the lot, and then he tells people that Reuben and Gad and half of Manasseh are going to stay east of the Jordan. And then when they get into the land, the high priest Eleazar and Joshua and a leader from each tribe is going to be in charge of dividing up the land. So there's not going to be disputes. They're going to come to an agreement of who's going to settle where. And most Bibles have a map of where all the tribes are. And some of them will become important in gospel prophecy, and most of them won't. But the important thing is, of course, the land of Judah, which is where Jerusalem is. And Benjamin is always right with Judah. The northern tribes get all screwed up. But then Isaiah makes a prophecy about him that Jesus fulfills. And, we can talk about that some other time. But if you look at a map, you can see where each of the tribes settled. So Judah's a big tribe. They got a big chunk of land. Manasseh and Ephraim are big. They get big chunks of land. Tribe of Naphtali's little. They get the little bit of land around Capernaum because they're a small tribe. Levi doesn't get land because they're the priests. They have to be supported. They're not allowed to work. I think everybody should work, but the Levites aren't allowed to work. My hero is Paul when he always tells people, I don't ask you guys for any money. I don't ask for any support. I earn my own keep while I'm here. So I never asked you for anything, which is kind of nice. As opposed to the people on TV. Then if you send somebody a few bucks, then you get like 18 emails a day and 14 phone calls. I told a couple of those, they hire these professional fundraisers. That burns me up too. And finally I say to them, the more you call me, the less likely I am to give you anything. If I want to give you something, I'll send it. But if you call me every 2 days, that's just aggravating. So the Levites get some cities they can live in and just a teeny bit of land around them. It actually comes out to like, I forgot it, 1/10 of 1% of the total land belongs to the Levites. And of course, everybody has to support them. And then there's 6 cities of refuge you have to set up. A city of refuge is a place where you cannot have revenge brought on you by somebody's family if you commit what we call manslaughter, not murder. There's no refuge. Murderers are to be immediately executed. There's no question about that. But if you get in a fight with somebody and the guy dies, you didn't mean to kill him. We would call that manslaughter. But if I get in a fight with Tony and I hit him, he goes against the wall, hits his head, and he dies, his family may come and say, we're going to take our vengeance on you. And he's got two strong boys that could beat the crap out of me. No, so in order to prevent that, there were cities of refuge where you could go. And the Levites monitored them so nobody could take their revenge on you. Now, if they determined you were a murderer, you didn't have revenge. You didn't have refuge. It was only to prevent people from manslaughter, because murderers are immediately put to death. The only way murder is atoned for is by death. I mean, not atoned for, but yes, and and the death penalty is restated several times in the Old Testament, and in Corinthians too. But when you shed a man's blood, your blood has to be shed. So, and these places of refuge were kind of types of Messiah too. You committed a sin, but you could go be safe somewhere, but on a much lesser degree. I mean, you couldn't go there if you had done some horrible crime, not just murder, but you couldn't go there and say, I stole 10,000 shekels from the temple and I don't want anybody coming after me. That wouldn't cut it. So, if you look down in chapter 35, it talks about there's 6 cities of refuge. These 6 cities shall be for refuge, for the stranger, for the sojourner, that anyone who kills a person accidentally may flee there. But if he strikes him with an iron implement so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. If he strikes him with a stone in the hand, by which one could die, and he does die, he is a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Or if he strikes him with a wooden hand weapon, by which one could die, and he does die, he is a murderer, and the murderer shall be put to death. The avenger of blood himself shall put the murderer to death. When he meets him, he shall put him to death. So blood is only avenged by blood. Then 36 talks about some heirs and what happens to women, but there's the very end of the book of Numbers there at 36:13. These are the commandments and the judgments which the Lord commanded the children of Israel by the hand of Moses in the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. Says it again, across from Jericho. So that ends Numbers. That was kind of a dopey session, wasn't it? I mean, we can't possibly read all that, but you should read all that. You should read that for your homework.